Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next webinar that we're doing today here at Media Services and with Showbiz Software. My name is Roger Jones, and I have been a veteran of Showbiz time cards for many, many years. Over about 12 years, I've been helping to develop the software that you love so much. Now, this webinar is a little bit different. Many times I go through and I demonstrate the Showbiz Time Cards program. What I'm going to do is kind of go back to basics. And what it is really the topic is, what's wrong with paying flats? And that's kind of a bit of a tricky question because technically you can, but I'm going to talk about where you can and where you can't. And go over the various other questions that were brought up. Why can't you do this, or why can you do this? What does this mean? I'm going to use the Showbiz Time Card program to be able to help you understand how it's such a great tool to be able to help you. Now, of course, I know some of you are veterans to Payroll, and I'm always appreciative of the support. So one of the things I would like actually some help from some of you that are veterans of not only Payroll, but of Showbiz Time Cards, if there's anything that you can think of that when you were starting off Payroll that you know now, go ahead and there's a section in where it says questions, go ahead and type that because I want some interaction from you, and I'll read those things aloud. So, those veterans of you, of course, that, can, hey, if you started thinking about it, what would you like to impart? What wisdom would you like to impart to somebody who's maybe new to doing payroll or doesn't always understand all the concepts of payroll? What could you recommend? Please go ahead and put those questions, put those answers actually into those questions, and I'll read it aloud. And that way I can interact with you, and we can help teach people together. How's that? All right. So, well, as production is getting bigger and bigger right now, we're in production is booming. We need there's a lot of accountants that are needed right now. People who are experts on how to do payroll. So basically, this is a get back. It's a get back to basics. I'm using the Showbiz software program. We're going to go over that, demonstrate some of the fundamentals. So whether you're a beginner or you're a veteran accountant, these fundamentals and universal concepts are going to help you in your day-to-day of calculating payroll. So first of all, I want to point you to our website. Our website, you can see our beautifully, nicely designed website. It's been redesigned recently, so take a look at it. Feel free to kind of mess around with it a little bit. It's kind of fun. But nevertheless, I want you to take a look at a couple of different resources that will help you. So first of all, take a look through each one of them, of course. See what we offer. There's lots of resources that we offer to the community to be able to take care of your payroll. Look at Showbiz software, of course. Take a look at, we offer more than just the Showbiz Crew Card software. We offer a labor guide. In fact, that labor guide could be very helpful to you, and I'll go over that a little bit today. Film and TV Crew Cards, you can download a trial of the program and work for 10 days. We have a specific Showbiz software that works with SAG-AFTRA to calculate time cards. We also have time card bundles if you want to buy both. And then we also have something called PC Envelope. It works with our budgeting program, and keep going through the various things. You can see what we offer and take a look at them and see if maybe it's something you might want to use. Also, resources. Take a look at resources. Resources, not only can you sign up for new webinars, of course, but you can also look for this support and tutorial section. This actually is very handy because after today you might have some more questions, and of course our software support team is there to help you. They're right there. But maybe you might want to go into, I want to learn a little bit more about the Showbiz Crew Cards that Roger talked about today. So you're going to go right in here and you're going to look, and these are basically, not only are they past webinars that you, of course, can watch, but you can also go through and just basically, as they say in the industry, soup to nuts. Go right from the beginning, right to the end, and be able to learn a lot more about Showbiz Time Cards in viewing different video tutorials that we have posted up on YouTube. So feel free to use that. Again, you can get that free trial if you want to and use the program from right here. But also, let's go over to the contact section because I want you to see that. Again, that's our information about all our software. If you want to be able to contact our payroll company because you have questions about stuff like that, you can contact our client services department. We also have New York as well. So feel free, again, for anything you have questions about, contact us because we're happy to help you. All right, so going over to the Showbiz Crew Cards program. Now, very first question, of course, why can't I pay everyone just a flat amount? Well, there's a reason for that. It's called the government, and it's called the law. All right, so basically what happens is there is something called wage and hour law, something called the FLSA. FLSA is basically the Fair Labor Standards Act. Okay, now that act basically requires that employees must receive the minimum wage, first of all, and they must not be employed for more than 40 hours a week without receiving overtime, which is time and a half of their rate for those specified hours after 40. So that's very, very important. That is a federal law that you must do. Now, there are some states, of course, that actually supersede that. For example, California is one of them. Nevada is another, where you actually have to pay overtime after, say, for example, 8 hours a day. So there's a slight derivation there. It's slightly different. So that's important. You must need to make sure that obviously, number one, you need to pay minimum wage. And number two, you need to pay overtime, unless, of course, they're considered exempt. So first of all, let me go into the hourly people, and then I'll explain what the difference between the hourly and exempt are. So first of all, using our Showbiz Time Cards program, again, feel free to download it and use the trial if you like to. You can go right to, and I would start with the non-union section, which is here. You can always click between the union and non-union section at the top corner, or you can go to the scripts menu and you can actually toggle here. So sometimes, and I know sometimes people get a little confused, they'll go, oh, wait, what's this for? We do go into this on our other tutorials, but essentially what this program is, you can use union and non-union people, payees that you're paying together in the same program. It's a beautiful part of the program is you can do that together and not have to buy more than one program. So I'm going to switch over to the non-union section. When I do that, it's going to show me all these different rules right in here. So first of all, I go into state OT laws. Now, the reason why I'm clicking this is because this will take you to the U.S. Department of Labor, who actually, of course, made sure, again, FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act, they're actually going to make sure that you not only apply by, again, first thing was minimum wage, right? There is a federal minimum wage. The federal minimum wage, if you look at it right here, is $7.25 per hour. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, some states do supersede, and they will pay higher. As long as you're paying more than the federal, you're okay. Then that's what some states do. They'll pay more than what's required federally. All right. Again, that's that FLSA. So for example, if I look here, right here, for example, here's a state right here, is Alaska, that does daily 8 but weekly 40. So that is more than just the regular. And if you want to go take a look, for example, here's Nevada. I told you about that earlier. Okay, so there's their minimum wage, and there's different rules for that. And you can look at New Mexico. Again, you can go to, it's kind of nice because you can actually just scroll to it from here if you want to, right? And go for there and just say, oh, I want California. And then you can see that California even has we actually have the highest expectation for overtime and some of the highest pays as well in the United States. So here's the minimum wage right now. You can take a look at that. But basically, what does that mean? Let me show you, and I'm going to demonstrate this in the Showbiz Time Cards program so you can get a better understanding how it works. Okay, so basically, if I come in here, I'm expected to do one thing with an hourly person. I need to enter hours because, of course, otherwise do I figure that they're supposed to be paid overtime after 40 so that I can comply with that FLSA law? Okay, so first of all, what I do is I just enter hours. So, sure, many of you, of course, over the years have gone in there and you typed enter a time card. So 8, I'm just going to do 14, 15, 21. The reason I do that is because it's a standard 12-hour day, which is not too uncommon for a lot of shows. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this down, make it real quick so you can see what's happening here. So first of all, if I was to do a standard federal 40, which we talked about at the very beginning, what happens there, which is a bit different, is, see, you go in and after the 40th hour, See how it's breaking it down now? After the 40th hour, it is now saying, now I have to pay them time and a half. That's the FLSA. And of course, don't forget, you need to make sure you pay at least a minimum wage for that particular state. So I'll just say 15. All right, so we're complying with that law. So now I've got those two things. Make sure I got it down. I got this right. Or actually, sorry, you're right. Federal was actually 725, wasn't it? So we'll do that. All right, so now we've got that. And we hit Magic Pay. What it does is, oh, of course, I'm just going to ask me, did you forget a couple of things? I can say ignore, but I'll put those things in there. So just get them in so you know. These are little pop-up warnings that we actually help, that help you pay correctly when you're using the program. So I can put those in really quickly. You know, put in things like that. I want a city, state. You know, say that I'm New York. There we go, New York City. So there we go. All right, so I've got a couple things in there. But nevertheless, you see now what it did is it calculated I have 40 hours of straight time, and I do have 20 hours of time and a half. Okay, fair enough. That's because, of course, that extra the total of 60 hours that I worked in a week, right? Because I worked 12, 12, 12, and 12, 60 hours. So 40 hours of that is paid at straight time, and 20 hours is paid at time and a half. So that's just the standard federal law. There we go. So if I work in a state, for example, like we mentioned, Alaska, Nevada, stuff like that, I click on here, and that actually now will be slightly different. It's actually paying every hour, a day. Okay, got it. Straight time, time and a half. Perfect. By the way, let's move up the hours just a little bit so you can see that increase. I just want you to see that, what happens there. So when you hit that, see how it automatically knows what to do? It's just going to increase and change. Now I went back to the federal again, federal 8. But see, here we go. I had to click the button, and now it's calculating, right? I went in there. It's still paying the way you properly do. But remember, what's different is those hours are adding towards the 40. All right, California is also slightly different than that. Probably a lot of you are in California, I would think, so we'll do that one next. That one actually goes in and says you have to pay 8 hours of straight time, 4 hours of time and a half, in other words, up to 12 hours, and after the 12th hour, you have to pay double time. All right, so that's what's different. State of California is the only state in the union right now that requires you to pay double time. So that double time right there is now calculated, and now we have a day, for example, one day, we did go over 12 hours, and now it's 1.5. So here's the beauty of this. As long as you're complying, of course, I would want to bring that up. Of course, I was in California, I have to pay the minimum wage, but nevertheless, now I'm complying with that FLSA, and I'm also complying with the state law that overrides that, okay? So yeah, basically that's the two things you have to make sure that you're dealing with, is that overtime and the minimum wage per state. Now, some states also have something additional called, this New York and California, called the WTPA. This basically stands for the Wage Theft Protection Act. And I know California was 2012, and I think New York was not far after that. But what happens is basically there's a particular code that employer has to abide by if you're doing payroll in the state of California, or for example in New York, where you basically have to go in there and you have to specifically in their contract write out exactly what you need to pay. Ironically, a lot of this is very much like what the unions do. The unions are very specific. This is how many hours you get. This is, how much your rate of pay is. This is your overtime. These are things like allowances and stuff like that, making sure you comply with various things. It's a very specific type of contract, and you really do have to make sure that the hiree at the time that they're hired complies with this. Now, do you have to know all these rules? No. What you can do, again, Show Biz Time Cards will help you, but we, as media services, as a payroll company, can also help you to comply with the WTPA for California and New York if you're doing payroll with us. So again, I mentioned that because I want you to actually contact our experts because they can help you with that. All right. So now, we talked about hourly. Well, can I just pay these people flat? Well, again, it's that WTPA. But there is considered an exemption for people that can be paid a flat weekly fee. And those people again, they're considered exempt employees. Now, non-exempt would be the hourly people we just talked about. Exempt people, you don't have to pay overtime. You can avoid paying overtime. Doesn't matter how many hours they work. They're exempt from wage and hour law. Okay. Now, the exception to that is what kind of duties do they perform? Okay. Now, laws do vary a little bit from state to state, but this is a federal law basically saying that what are your job duties? Okay. Well, if you are considered some kind of an executive, right, somebody who supervises 2 or more employees, or is some kind of management as a primary duty of their position, then yes, you could be considered an exempt employee. Okay. Now, we actually have a list of people that you could actually consider exempt. And usually in their title, you're going to see the word coordinator, director, operator, foreperson, designer. I'm just going through them right now. And again, we can give you that list. I'll give you a person that can actually give you a list of what's considered an exempt employee. Supervisor, coordinator, yeah, pretty much anything that's, again, some kind of supervisory or managerial type of role that can be considered exempt. Now, mind you, you still have to pay them. There's a certain minimum you have to pay them, and it does vary, the federal compared to a state. Again, we can get that for you. I'll get the expert to give you the exact rules depending on what state you're doing payroll with. But of course, you still have to pay them a certain amount to be able to. Just because you can clarify and say basically yes, they are a manager. You still have to pay them at least a minimum to be able to qualify that for that as well. Now, how do you deal with that in Showbiz time cards? Real simple, actually. So instead of actually using this particular thing here, what I'm going to do is, here, I'm going to go duplicate a time card for you, and I'm going to change it. I'm going to take some of these things out here. In fact, take that out real quick, just to get that out. So it doesn't technically hurt you, but what you're going to do is something different. Instead of clicking an hourly like I did before, right, or clicking one of these buttons, what I'm going to do, and she's going to change this up a little bit. I'm going to say weekly or daily. Now, most contracts are weekly. And by the way, I don't need hours either, because again, why did we enter hours? Because we want to calculate overtime. So we can comply with that, with those rules and laws that I just talked about. Okay. Now, this is where technically, yes, I can say that I am, I'll just make sure that I'll just say I'm a manager. No problem, I'm complying with that. And if we don't have it in there, remember the one thing about Showbiz time cards, you can always add it in. All right, good, there we go. All right, so then we got that in there. Don't need an hourly rate anymore, but I do need to make sure when I click weekly, I do something as well, which is weekly rate. And I'll just say I'm $5,000 a week. So way over the threshold. So perfect. Now I need to tell the program what days did I work. By the way, it's a real quick one. I click on work here. Boom, done. I worked 5 days. Now, okay, forgot the week ending, so don't forget that. Again, these are all helpful to you. Don't forget these. They're there to help you make sure that you do payroll right. All right, so there we go. Done. That's the difference. Now, daily is not really all that different, except really what you're going to do is you're going to come in here and you're going to figure out some contracts are daily and they're acceptable. Most of them are weekly, and that's okay, but sometimes they are daily, and that's okay as well. The only difference is you might want to figure, well, they're supposed to be $5,000 a week, but really what they are is $1,000 a day. So essentially what you do is just dividing it up by how you want to pay. And there we go. Same concept. It's just now daily. Instead of doing 0.2, right, because that's how normally the calculation is done. By the way, always look at our calculations just to make sure you understand how it's paying. It's actually just saying it's 5 times 1,000 to give you 1,000. Again, I'll switch that back real quick just so you can see it again. Weekly is doing a slightly different math. It's not really, again, it's the same amount, but it's the way it's calculating that's slightly different. So watch, you go back there. And again, you'll see instead of saying it's 5 times 1,000, you'll say it's 5.2. In other words, saying that that's how it's calculating now. So again, do you have to know all that? No. The calculator, this is why Showbiz Time Cards is there for you. It helps you. It helps you calculate the rate, does the math for you, and does all those things for you. Okay, so that actually goes through the second question as well. Do I need to enter hours, or can I just say worked? Well, answer to that question is what I just talked about, which is, are they an hourly? If they're hourly, then yes, you do. Because again, you want to make sure that you're complying with those different rules that I talked about in the very beginning, the FLSA, WTPA, for example, if it applies if that's in your state. So yes, that's the difference. Worked you can do if they're exempt employee. If they're not an exempt employee and they're hourly, you must use, again, and we'll go back to that time card. We'll go back one time card here. So you can see that again, you must enter hours because they're an hourly. So you enter hourly right there. You put in the hourly rate, of course. Always make sure that you're paying the minimum wage. And again, that's on that website that we clicked on right down here. Take you to that again, and you click on it. You can see it right now. You can always just bookmark it yourself. But using the program, just use it. It's beautiful because it makes it really easy. And then you can go and check out what is in Colorado, what is Nevada, what is Arizona, California. It'll tell you what the minimum wages are and again the rules. But again, that's just to make sure that you're complying with those. The Showbiz time card will make sure that you, of course, when you use it, you're going to be able to say, right, I'm putting that in, I'm using the California state law, and now once I choose those things, I hit Magic Pay, and I'm getting that correctly done. All right. So now, again, what is overtime, and how do I deal with that? Well, again, we talked about overtime. Overtime is obviously for hourly employees. Overtime is, again, and I can show you these other ones too. There's 8 daily, 10 daily, 12 daily. Those are specifically, again, they have after 12 hours you have to pay time and a half. After 10 you have to pay time and a half. But the federal 40, what they call cumulative hours, which is what we saw in the beginning. I'll switch over and do it again for you. After 40 cumulative hours, you have to pay time and a half. Even the state of California does it, but we do something called 40 straight. Because we pay time and a half and double time, we get a little bit of a break in that fact that you can pay after 40 straight. So we're still complying with the law, but we get that overtime. So it's a little bit different. Again, do you need to know that? It's a good thing to keep in your mind, yes, but again, use the program and you will pay correctly. But again, let's go back and look at that 40 cum, right? In other words, after 40 cumulative hours, I have to pay time and a half. So that's why an overtime schedule is important. Now, I'm going to skip over just a little bit to be able to see what's different about this and union. Okay, union, by the way, just so you know, union usually uses the California as a basis and goes from there. Okay, so for example, if I picked, any other particular rule set here, I'll grab maybe a TV. Okay, there we go. 8-4-W. Remember we talked about 8 hours of straight time, 4 hours of time and a half, and then double time after that. That is California. So again, you can see where most union contracts have used California as a basis when they've created their overtime schedules. Now, of course, unions are a little bit different in that their overtime schedules are based upon collective bargaining. They're also a little bit different based on the guild too, or the local that you might be dealing with. Okay, those guilds and those locals might have slightly different rules. Now, again, which is nice about the program is we have a lot of those built in for you, and you can even make your own if you happen to run into a situation where maybe you're with it's what's called a one-off agreement, that maybe you go to a particular area that doesn't have a local guild in it. Oftentimes, it'll fall back on some kind of what's called an area standards agreement. Sometimes you might have a guild there and they may make a deal, but they may only make it with your production. So there's different things like that. So again, that's one of the things that we can help you with as a payroll company, is be able to help you, interpret what these things mean so you can choose the right overtime schedule. So, all right, so going back to the worksheet again, I've chosen this one, and this is based on worked hours. And of course, with anything, it's going to tell me I need to fix it. So I need to go ahead and hit Magic Pay. And now, of course, I have to clear the hours, of course. Yeah, there's a little grid override there because I was doing a Fed. All right, so there we go. Now it's paying. And so you can see it's almost identical to the state of California. The difference you can see actually in this guild is this guild has slightly different rules on 6th and 7th days. You can also have things like alternate days, like distant locations. This guild might actually have a slightly different, instead of being 8 and 4, it's 8 and 6 because it's a distant location. So that's what's cool about this is the program has accommodations to be able to take care of your union agreements. So that's kind of cool. Now, another thing that's kind of cool about this is you might see if you're looking through these overtime schedules, there is something called elapsed compared to work. Now, I don't want to go too much into that, but the program has it that when you're doing elapsed compared to worked hours, it automatically adjusts. Basically, just so you know, what happens with elapsed hours is it's basically an agreement with your union that you have to follow. And basically what happens is the lunch is deducted from their day, as all things are. For example, if you notice this, when I go in there, I've actually been there. See, I've actually been there for 13 total hours, right? I go from 8 to 21, but I'm deducting the 1 hour of lunch. I don't get paid for lunch. Fair enough. So now what happens here is, well, I don't get to deduct from the gold if they earned it. They've actually been there for 13 elapsed hours, which technically means they get to have the gold early. So that's what's happening here. You don't pay it. In other words, watch again. I'll show you what happens here. W, it's 8 hours of straight time, 4 hours of time and a half, but I didn't earn the gold because I wasn't there for the elapsed hours. But there we go. That lunch now, I don't pay for the lunch, but essentially what's happening is I have to pay based on the elapsed hours. Oops. Based on the elapsed hours of the employees there, and now you can see the grids overing, but I do get to deduct the lunch from something else. I deduct it from the time and a half. Again, do you have to know that? No, just make sure you understand that general rule for elapsed hours is for features. It's for sometimes movie of the weeks because they're like a feature, and there are cable agreements that have them too. Again, we can always help you if you're a payroll company. If you're with another payroll company, that's fine. Of course, contact your payroll person there, and they can make sure to give you the right rules so you're paying your people correctly. All right, so next one is meal penalty. What is a meal penalty? And should I pay them? Yes, you should. All right, so going back to the non-union model, currently there is only one state in the United States that requires you to pay a meal penalty. What is a meal penalty? Here? Everybody hear me? Oh, sounds like we might have had an audio problem. Can somebody go ahead and tell me if you can hear me? Okay, people, we're good. No, we're good. People can hear. Yeah. People that said they can hear. So, thank you for saying that. Appreciate it. Apparently, somebody couldn't hear internally, so but it's good we can hear me. All right, so good. Back to where we were. All right, so meal penalties. So, okay. Now, meal penalties. Now, meal penalties are required because you have to give an employee a break. Here's the trick with a break. You must physically give them a break. And the rule basically is it depends on what wage order you are in. Wage orders actually require you to either do a 5-hour or a 6-hour, okay? 5 hours usually if you're in the office in some kind of clerical office position. If you are dealing with film, on the other hand, you're film production, 6 hours is usually considered fine, and that's because that's, again, most of the unions are all built on 6 hours, so that's fine. You follow that instead. You follow that model instead. But what that means literally is, in this case, I did do that. That's why I went at 8 hours, 8 and 14. That is literally 6 hours. So what happens? You have to physically give them a break. They have to walk away from their job for at least a half an hour, or maximum of 1. It depends on, again, the situation. So that's what you do. So you go in and make sure you give them a break. Again, it can be a half hour, it can be an hour. As long as they're given that physical break, you enter that hours correctly and you're good. You don't have to pay a meal penalty. Now, as you can see down here, there's 3. I'm going to switch this up just so you can see this, what happens if you just by chance go 14.1 hours and 15.1 hours here. Okay, so we went over, we're doing, of course, the program works in military time. So I would literally say, oh, right, we did go we went 6 hours and 6 minutes. Okay, so now what's happened now is it's showing that I have to pay a meal penalty. Now, if you're in the state of California, you have to pay a meal penalty. California is the only state that currently requires this. If you're in other states, you don't have to. Now, can you pay it? Sure. In fact, oftentimes you might have a California person that goes there. You can pay it, no problem. All it really is basically it's a penalty that basically says that I need to pay this person their rate. And that, again, I was $15 an hour, right? So there we go. I have to be paid a penalty of my rate for not giving me a break within 6 hours. Okay? So there you go. What it did, and again, see how this other one, it's automatically knowing that I'm doing a non-union one. It doesn't matter how many times I violate it, I'm still having to pay that $15. Okay? Again, that's my rate. Again, if it was different, if I was $35 an hour, right, say 35, what we would do is, you go ahead and 35, right? Does that make sense? It's literally whatever your hourly rate is, that is the penalty for violating that. So, again, other states don't have to do that. You can if you want to. That's okay. And oftentimes you'll often find that if you're doing a show that's a union and a non-union show together, that's fine. You probably want to pay your non-union people a meal penalty, just because then, they should be paid because, the union people got violated. You need to make sure that they get paid as well. So, it's fair. What's fair is fair, right? So that's what a meal penalty is. Now, there is some difference, though, between this and union. What's different between this and union, on the other hand, is when you're going in and paying union people. I'm going to switch over to the union view just to see it because it's a little more complicated. What happens is with them is, I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to clear all of it out. Okay, is there are a couple of things you can do now. There's different types. There is what they call basic crafts. There is IATSE Studio. There's IATSE Location. I'm going to say we're Studio. If you ever want to see them, by the way, you click right over here, and you can take a look and see what these are. Okay, here are the rules. By the way, if you ever see these kind of messed up and they're not looking correct, just go ahead and click this little reset meal penalties. It'll reset it to the proper setup, which is here. Now, for example, I'm doing stage. Stage is basically $8.50 for the first one, then $11 for the next, and it's $13.50 repeating. So in other words, it's additive. In other words, $8.50 plus $11 plus $13.50 repeating. Okay, IATSE Location is $7.50, then $10, then $12.50. $7.50 plus $10, then $12.50 across the board. Okay, Basic Crafts is $10, then $12.50, and then $15 repeating. So again, all you need to do is choose the correct one, and you'll be paying correctly for your union people. But one thing is different about union. Because of collective bargaining agreements, you can do additional things. You can override meal penalties because of something called grace and something called NDB. Without going into too much into detail, what basically grace allows you to do is, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this, is basically what we do is they call grace on set. We need to finish the shot. The actors everything's working perfectly, the camera's working, everything's going well. We need an additional 12 minutes to finish off the shot. And that's what we asked for. We called grace, and they literally say, okay, grace, we're taking our 12-minute grace, and we took it. So where we go is we go ahead and we put that 12-minute grace, and it overrode the meal penalty. Okay? There are things in the PM that you can go in and take care of as well. But again, like if you tried to call a 30-minute, which is called a camera wrap grace at the end of the day, I couldn't do it because it went too far. It went too long. So the program will protect you that way. But it allows you to say, look, we needed some time to be able to finish up, be able to, if, for example, camera wrap grace is usually for departments that have a lot of equipment, they need to wrap that equipment up, right? So sometimes they're given a little bit of a grace to be able to finish what they need to do. Another thing is called an NDB. which basically allows you to delay because maybe in the morning the camera crew had to come up, they had to set up a big setup, but they had to take care of that setup before the rest of the crew came, but you supplied a hot meal. So what would happen here is we could say an NDB is usually within the 2 hours of call, as long as you've supplied a hot meal. It delays remember, we had to pay them by 6 hours, right? Well, you fed them in the morning, so that's okay. We're allowed to, by IATSE rules, delay it by 2 hours. So we just literally say, what is the delay? It's literally, I get to get 15 minutes, so I'm going to say it's from 9:45 to 10 o'clock, and I'll just put it's the end of the NDB, and there we go. It disappears. Again, do you have to know all? As long as you understand the concept, that's fine. We can help you, or your payroll person can help you, whoever that payroll person might be, whether it's media services or other. That's what we're here to help you with. And again, the staff and software support is also very helpful as well. So use that functionality that's in the program to be able to help you. But that's what meal penalties are for. Okay, so what are allowances? All right. So allowances. Allowances are additional things that you're paid to the employee. A lot of you probably know what a box is. Box is basically just a real simple concept. What happens on production is maybe there's a person who has a particular skill, right? And they have very specific equipment. Well, you're going to go buy that equipment for them? No. Let them bring their own equipment, and then you pay them a fee for it. That's what a box or a kit rental is. It allows them to bring their own tools to the set or wherever they're taking care of, whatever their tools of the trade are, so to speak, so you don't have to buy them. So what you do is you go and you say, okay, well, I want to go ahead and I want to say this person gets X amount per day. I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to give them $25 for their kit per day. All right, so now what happens is the program automatically knows to go in there, and every day they work, they're going to get paid $25, and there we go, 25 times 5, because they work 5 days. That's fine. If you want to go ahead and say, look, we're just going to cap it, say it's $100, you can just say it's weekly, and there we go, hit the button. And now it caps it at $100. Okay, there we go. So yeah, there's other types of allowances, even a fillable allowance. There's car. Remember when you're paying people, again, like somebody who's driving around. I mean, they're doing it for production, right? They're doing it on behalf of what you're doing. So you might want to go ahead and pay them, how much is being paid. Now that changes, of course, a little bit, but I believe is it 50? Somebody can correct me on the audience. I think is it 54 cents a mile federally right now? And if you pay above that, then you have to pay tax. So, here we go. Somebody said thank you. 585. I knew it did go up. So yeah, it's 58.5 cents. So one of you actually, thank you for doing that. It's now 585 is what's considered. Now everything above that, of course, if you want to pay higher, you can, but it's now considered taxable. Okay. Other things, you have fillable allowance. You can go ahead and say you want to pay for a cell. Everybody has cell phones nowadays, but that's okay. Maybe you decided to sell, you're going to pay for a cell. And you go ahead and we'll give you $5 a day for your cell. It works the same way. You just go ahead and add it. Now, there are other types of allowances, too, in the program, depending whether you're union or non-union. There's insurance. There's mileage. There's, the meal penalty calculators there. Meal money is is for Teamsters and DGA people, because often they'll work during their lunch. They get what's called the meal money. They get an amount for basically having to do that. They basically, or the Teamsters when they're driving, they'll take a quickie break and maybe just eat a real break, but they're not going to take a full break. So they get a meal money instead, right? There's production fees, which is DGA, extended days, stuff like that. There's per diems. Well, what about a per diem? What's important about a per diem? Well, per diem is maybe you're on a distant location, right? And the employee would be out of pocket if they had to go and, buy their own meals, and if they had to go in and they had to pay for, their lodging and stuff like that. So you can pay them a per diem. And it's really simple. There's taxable and non-taxable. Again, each city has its own per diem rules. So always check that, or contact us and we can help you. You make sure you pay the right amount. But all you need to do is just go ahead and pay whatever it is, 15, and we'll say 20, right? And you go ahead and add those in, and you're going to go, and there's an allowance you can add in really quickly. There we go, per diem. That gets run through the check. So yeah, those are basically what an allowance is. Allowances allow you to pay the employee that's not part of their regular work pay, so to speak. It's an extra allowance based upon whether it's a union agreement or a non-union agreement, because they've, again, like I said, Box, they bring their own kit. Cell, maybe you're letting them use their own cell phone so you don't have to pay for it, stuff like that. Okay, so all of this leads into, why would I calculate a time card anyways? I've just been showing you why. Because Showbiz Time Card is going to help you calculate out all these different things. You're double checking to make sure that the payroll is as accurate as possible and that you are paying what you want to pay. Because remember, as a payroll company, of course, what I'm part of, we're going to pay what you pay. Now, we're going to check to make sure we're going to comply with the laws and the rules and make sure that you're paying correctly. But again, you want to make sure that you're paying correctly too, right? So this is the beauty of things like Showbiz Time Cards. It's going to have the rules in there for you. All these little things I've been showing you, all these are rules that are paid, whether it's union or non-union, that you're going to make sure that you pay accurately. That's why you use a program like Showbiz Time Cards. Before, I remember years ago, and a lot of you who have been around for a while, guess what happened? You had to do it manually, right? You had to take an old time card. I remember, so funny, I remember the time cards were very small and many years ago, and they kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we got more and more complicated with the payroll we're doing. Okay? So yes, that's why, again, it's the complicated nature of payroll now that it's gotten so complicated that we want to make sure that up front we are paying accurately. There's another reason why you also want to go ahead and calculate time cards in advance, and that's something called hot costs. Literally, the program can go in and calculate what's called a hot cost. All hot costs are, just so you know, hot costs are specifically daily labor totals. Why do you do that? Well, whether you're union or non-union, it doesn't matter. You have a budget, right? That budget says, per day, per week, per episode, per show, whatever you're doing, right? Could be movie, right? You have a budget that you need to stick to. And you don't want to find out maybe a week or two into the project that maybe you're going over budget because of, various circumstances that might happen, whether maybe you needed more people to take care of something. Those kind of things can get a little bit hairy. So what you do is you get daily labor totals so you can accurately track per day, so you don't find out maybe 7 to 10 days down the road that you might be over budget. This has become a very, very crucial piece of most studios when they calculate things. They don't want to find out days down the road that they're over budget. They want to make sure that they're on budget per day, because the cost of episodes is, it's very expensive. It's very expensive to be able to make these beautiful episodes that people like to watch. And, we're talking in the millions, if not tens of millions of, per episode to be able to do some of these big shows. Movies, same thing. Tens of millions can be, be easily spent within a few days. So always make sure that you use this program. So that's why you also want to calculate, because trying to calculate per day is a nightmare unless you use something like Showbiz Time Cards, which has it built in. Okay. So one more thing, more concept, and then I'm going to start answering some of your questions and reading aloud what some people actually suggested I talk about, because we've got about 15 minutes, which is great. So first of all, what is hours to gross and what is gross to net? Okay, hours to gross is basically the Showbiz Time Cards is an hours to gross calculator, or think of it this way: it's an hours to gross mini payroll system. It actually is a payroll system. It actually calculates a lot of what you need. It's just specifically hours to gross. Okay, it's basically taking how much the hours they worked, overtime schedule, allowances, meal penalties, and all these things, and putting them together so you get a gross total. That's the gross that the employee makes per week, okay, or per time card in this case is what we're doing, right? Now, gross to net, on the other hand, is taking that gross total and then breaking it out: fringes, taxes, fees. Remember, there's fringes are usually deal with the guilds. They have health, pension, and welfare that needs to be paid, and there's a percentage for that, right? For taxes, FICA, FUI, SUI, etc. Some of those are responsible for the employee, some are the employer, right? Fees, payroll companies, there's other fees that have to be paid, for various things. So those fees, like insurances and stuff like that, of course, all need to be paid as well. So that's what the gross to net part is literally, it's what's left, you go ahead, you deduct these things, and then that's what the employee is being paid, after you do these deductions, all right? So that's basically just a kind of a nutshell of what that is. Just remember, when you get a paycheck, you actually have, that's your net check. That's how much you're actually being paid, okay? So that's what basically gross to net is. Now, again, this is one of the beauty things is payroll companies like Media Services, we do this for you. We actually go through, we're experts at making sure that we pay correctly, right? We make sure we deduct all these different things for you. We make sure that you're paying accurately. So there's a huge advantage of not doing it yourself. And some, I know, will do that, and that's fine if that's what you want to do, and you can use the Showbiz time cards to be more accurate. But in the end, really, it's smart to actually go through a payroll company to be able to pay, because we can help you with all these different things. The end of the year, everybody's doing all their taxes. We help you with that. We make sure the employees get all the paperwork they're supposed to get. So that's exactly why, you want to use a payroll company. All right. So yes, those are all the topics we talked about today. So let's go into some of your questions and or comments. All right. So let's go into those. All right. So starting at the top. Okay, a bunch of people talked about the mileage. All right, somebody talked about, what's the difference between 2.5 and 3x? All right, so what happens with that one essentially is because it's an agreement, okay? That is definitely agreement. So somebody also pointed out something. I'll point that out in just a second. So first of all is basically what you're doing here is when you're dealing with maybe a higher overtime. For example, somebody did mention 3x. Here's a 3x right here, because that's a 6-day rule. Now, again, each guild is slightly different in how it pays. Most of the guilds will be standard California for a standard day. But in this case, here is a 3x. There's a good one. This would be because the person worked a 6th day. So let's do this. I'm going to copy a day, and we're going to paste, and we say we worked a 6th day. Now, the program, just so you know, automatically knows, because I kept this on, it's going to know that I'm paying a 6th day. And that's how it says, okay, right. This is now a new rule because I work a 6th day. It's 12 hours at time and a half, and now I'm bumping up to 3x. Because in this case, IBEW, Local 40, actually, that's their rule. You have to pay 3 times their rate after 12 hours on a 6th consecutive day. So, I didn't have 12 hours, but that's okay. Here, let's change that up. Let's do 22.0. There we go. And now, there we go. There's our 3x. So again, I think I don't want to get too bogged in the weeds for you, but essentially what it does is, just so you know, the program will automatically go ahead and choose, as long as you're choosing the right overtime schedule, you'll pay any premiums. They call it gold. Just so you know, gold is double time. Gold premium is anything higher than that. I've heard various stories about why it was. I think it was probably somebody said, I'm in gold because they got double time, because they were thinking, well, this is fantastic, right? And then gold premium came out of that whole concept of saying, beyond double is now gold premium. So yes, that what you're referring to is what they call gold premium, but that's anything higher than double time. And you can see the program automatically knew how to do that and picked it for you. Okay. And now somebody actually said, are you nuts not to use a payroll company? Yes, you are nuts not to use a payroll company. And you can see why, as I've been demonstrating the whole time. They were actually commenting that was correct, not to. You need to use a payroll company. Okay. Now, next one. Okay, somebody had commented. Actually, somebody's commenting about the minimum, the mileage. Actually, they say 2020 mileage is actually 575. And they actually gave a website to go for that. So check that. Somebody actually said this 575. So I guess the person initially may have been wrong, But that's okay. Go ahead and check just to make sure. Actually, they say go to irs.gov newsroom and you search for it. You'll find it there. But they're saying it's 575. Again, payroll companies will know this, so they'll be able to help you with that. All right. Let's see what else here. So allowance, there's a question about allowance, which we already answered already. The NDV, we asked that question as well. Good. How often is the union information updated? The overtime schedules, just so you know, we add, every time we make a new build, we probably add a couple. But here's the beauty of, and I described this in the very beginning of the demonstration. If you need to make your own, we can help you. Contact our software support people. We'll help you make it. As long as you can tell us something about those rules, we can help you make it. We just need to know what those rules are. If you're happening to be doing payroll with media services, that's great, because what we can do then is we can talk to our union person who's our rep here. His name is Norman, and he can make sure to tell you what we're supposed to pay, and then we'll make sure that overtime schedule's in there. Now, mind you, just so you know, even though we have all these overtime schedules, okay, there are really only 10 to 12 variations of the same thing. Just so you know, IATSE likes to get paid the same. They just use it's either a worked or an elapsed contract, or it's a distance or a studio contract. They basically revolve around those. If you look through them, you'll see, like, for example, it's either 8 and 6 or 8 and 4. It's either W or E. So again, that's a work compared to elapsed. So they just basically search for it. I mean, there's a nice function. I do go this when we do our webinars, but I can say, I'm looking for camera. Okay, there's my camera, and there we go. Or actually, sorry, I have to get. There we go. There's my camera guilds. So, whatever you know about what you're trying to find, look for it through here. And if you don't see it, we'll help you build it. But yeah, I think every time we make a new build, it's updated. Now, as far as rates, on the other hand, though, that's a little bit different. That's when you're going to go to our website, and you can actually go to resources. And let's see here. Actually, no, sorry, show us software. My mistake. And you're going to go right to our labor guide. It is free. Remember back in the day we had these old big books? Well, books are going away. We're doing it electronically online, and because there is really no extra cost to buying a book, we're doing it online, and we're doing it for free. All you need to do is just sign up. So sign up. We update these constantly. Every time there's a new unit, again, these are union agreements mostly, right? So every time it's updated, check it out, sign up, take a look, make sure it's accurate. But yeah, it should be updated quite frequently, actually. It's updated as soon as the union agreement is agreed to and posted, so it's up there. All right. Let's see, other questions. Somebody said they came in late. That's okay. Don't worry about it. This is being recorded, so you can go back and watch it again. A lot of questions today. It's great. Love it. Where can we find the most accurate fringes per state? Contact our support, or contact our sales staff. They can get it to you. There is several different websites, but it is funny. If you go to particular websites, they're a little bit hidden. So that's why in the end, we can help you. So again, contact us. We can help you find what that is particular fringes. For example, I know state of California is, I think it's 19.6 for fringes. Somebody can probably correct me if I'm wrong. It's like 19.6 or 19.7. Again, you can get that. For example, Stephen Fishman. He's one of our people here. He can help you get that information and make sure that that's correct. So contact us and we'll help you out. Force calls. So somebody talked about force calls. We do have a force call calculator in the program, but be aware of one thing. Force calls changed a little bit in January of last year, and they're still kind of evolving a little bit. But right now, I wouldn't use the program 100% for your force calls. I would use it a different way. I'm just telling the truth here, just so you know. The calculator will tell you how much of a forced call you've got, but the rules behind it have changed a little bit. So always make sure, because it's mostly, so far, it's California forced calls that have changed. So what you do basically is you go in here and you look for the rule, right? Sorry, this is the rule here. So basically you tell what is it, any infraction? Is it ILO budget, theatrical agreement, whatever? Choose that. If it sees it, make sure you choose how many hours. And then what will happen is if the applicable rule is there, it'll pay it. But always check it, especially if you're dealing with California, because there have been new rules. It has not been programmed yet. We will get it in there, but yes, be careful of that one. Just use it as basically as a way of knowing that you have to deal with a forced call, and then when we get that fixed for you, it'll make it a lot easier for you. Again, it also depends on where you are, so fair enough. Okay, other questions? Let's see here. So there's a lot of questions here. I'm trying to go a little bit through some of them. So, and again, if I don't get to all questions, that's okay. Don't worry about it. What you can do is you can contact us. You've got my information. I'll give it to you. You can also contact our sales staff. We can also help you with any of the questions you might have as well. So one of the questions is, are there any limitations to who you can be set up as an exempt daily? Well, really, the exemption is basically based on the contract. But again, are they considered exempt? That's really the bottom line. Okay, if you can consider them exempt, are they a supervisor or a manager, somebody who's actually supervising 2 or more employees? Then you can, most contracts are supposed to be weekly, but you can do daily. But yeah, that's really the only that limitation is 2 things really. Are they considered an exempt person? And then there is, I don't want to tell you the exact number because I know they've been changing recently, but there is a minimum federally you have to pay, and even states are different. For example, state of California, how much you pay them is based on a yearly figure, though, of course. You have to actually figure that into that, and we'll help you with that as a payroll company, but we'll give you what those guidelines are, whether it's federal or if the state supersedes that. So that's really the only limitations. You need to pay them at least that to be, that minimum, right? And also they need to be considered an exempt employee by being a supervisor of some sort, manager. Again, it's basically the law basically if they supervise 2 or more employees. Okay. How do you get that list? Contact us. For example, when you ask for Stephen Fishman. He can help you with that. If you're in New York, we have people in New York that we can help you with that as well. They can actually get you that list of exempt titles. All right. Let's see here. I must run out of time here. Wow, lots of questions here. So sadly, I won't be able to get through all of them. California, okay, I went over that one. Basically exempt, gotcha. Capping box rentals, that's a good one. Ask us. That'll take a little bit of time, but there is a way to cap it. And essentially, it's in the program itself. There's a box and car tracker right in here. I actually do have a good tutorial for that, but just give us a call. We can show you how to use it. It's real simple. Let's see, per diem, we talked about per diems. Lodging and meals. Yeah, which essentially is per diem, gotcha. If you have any specific questions about that, feel free to call us up and we can help you with that. Forced calls, we went over that. Let's see. Somebody came in late. Talking about 10 hourly. Give us a call about that because you said that you have a time card for media services. Let's actually, one person actually said they had a very specific scenario and they're actually dealing with media services. Let's get your payroll coordinator involved with that one so that we can make sure you're paying accurately on that one, because that's a very specific question. We want to make sure you got the right contract with this union or non-union. Per diem taxable as compared to non-taxable. That's a good question. In the program, we actually have the ability to say which is taxable, which is non-taxable, and that's down here. Now, I actually gave you 15, and see, there's the taxable, there's the non-taxable. How do you know which is which? That's in the local state guide. That's in the city guidelines, actually, because every city has a slightly different amount, and it's basically it's if you're paying more than that, it's considered taxable. But yeah, they have guidelines to do that. So where do you get that from? You give us a call and we can hook you up with that. We'll help you find the right information because it is usually per city, because it's basically, remember, you're paying them for food, you're also paying them for lodging essentially, right? So you need to make sure that maybe that city is a little more expensive than another city, so that you're basically paying what's supposed to be paid. Okay, so there's that. Let's see, wow, we are out of time, I think, but let me see if there's any other quickie questions I can answer for you. Again, always feel free to, you can contact us, we can help you out with anything else. Let's see, anything else? Exempt. Somebody said they were a bit confused about what's considered an exempt employee or not. And that's when you contact our friendly staff. We'll be able to help you with that one. We can literally give you paperwork that can actually show you what you can actually consider an exempt or non-exempt employee. Okay, that'll help you a great deal. All right. Now there's a couple of other questions, and sorry we didn't get to it. I want to keep this to an hour. So again, feel free to contact us, and we'll answer any questions you might have. You know, again, we're payroll experts that can help you out. If you're not doing payroll, as we understand, you know, you don't always have that choice. Contact your payroll person to be able to help you with that. And then, once you know what that rule is, ask us in the Showbiz Time Cards program, and we can show you how to use it. And again, bottom line, my main reason for wanting to do this today is a lot of times you guys were asking questions like this, and maybe it wasn't the right form because I was doing an advanced forum. So I'm sure we'll do another one of these as well, because I think it was very helpful to a lot of people to be able to understand some of the basics that you need to know to be able to pay it. And again, why Showbiz Time Cards? And also, of course, why a payroll company is there to help you to get this right. Because payroll is very complicated, and we want you to get it right. We want to make sure that you get paid proper, that your people get paid properly, you know, getting involved in audits or get in trouble with the government. Yeah, nobody likes to do that. I can guarantee you, nobody likes that. So again, thanks everybody for coming today. It was a wonderful time to be able to spend with you for the last hour. I really appreciate all your time. And again, any questions, just give us a call. We'll help you out with there's a few that I know didn't get answered. We'll help you with those. Don't worry about it, all right? Thank you very much, and have a great day.